of Love and Haight-Ashbury. Now they have a new record called Plaza, and it mines that same sepia-toned sound of the 1960s with a little Revolver-era Beatles thrown in as well. Somehow the band never devolves into parody. It's really compelling stuff, like this song called Elliott Street. Plays at Baby's All Right tonight, but they'll stop by our studio at 2 p.m. today, and you can live stream the music and conversation by visiting soundcheck.org.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. From Culver City, California, I'm Renee Montaigne. The Supreme Court floats in the background of most presidential elections, but not this one. And the reason why the High Court is front and center will be clear today, when 8 rather than 9 justices hear arguments in a case involving abortion. At issue is whether a Texas law imposes restrictions that unconstitutionally limit a woman's right to terminate a pregnancy. If upheld, the Texas law could lead to a dramatic cutback on abortion rights across the country. NPR Legal Affairs correspondent Nina Totenberg reports.
God commands you to not murder your baby. God hates the hands that shed innocent blood.
At the Fort Worth Clinic, the protesters are out early in the morning, and so are the patients, some of whom have traveled long distances by car and bus to get here.
I figured there'd be another clinic in my city, and come to find out there wasn't.
This woman took a day off and drove nearly 300 miles round trip to get an abortion. There was an abortion clinic in her home city, but it closed on the day the new Texas law, known as HB 2, went into effect in 2014. Indeed, before the law was enacted, there were 41 abortion clinics in the state. Today there are 19, and if both of the provisions at issue in today's case are upheld, at least 10 of those 19 would close, including this clinic in Fort Worth. As passionate as abortion rights advocates are about this case, so too are abortion opponents, including one of the co-authors of HB 2, Jason Isaac, who says his mother was born as the result of a rape in 1944.
I don't believe that I would be here today conducting this interview if Roe v. Wade were in effect in 1944.
The new Texas law requires all abortions to be done in ambulatory surgical centers that are mini hospitals, with wide corridors, large operating rooms, and an advanced air conditioning system, among other requirements. A second provision requires any doctor performing an abortion to have admitting privileges at a hospital within 30 miles of the clinic. Again, Mr. Isaac.
To me, that seems like good common sense legislation.
Virtually the entire established medical profession in Texas and nationally disagrees. The American Medical Association and other major medical groups have joined the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists in telling the justices that these provisions are unnecessary. They're harmful to women's health and safety, expensive, and cause delays that sometimes push abortions into the second trimester. Texas Solicitor General Scott Keller will tell the justices today that 10 women a week visit emergency rooms for complications from abortion, both surgical and by pill, and that the ambulatory surgical center standards are necessary for dealing with more acute emergencies.
Ensuring that EMTs can have access to the facilities, that there's not a maze of hallways.
At the Fort Worth Clinic, hallways are only about half the 8-foot width of the state law requirement, but as Dr. Bhavik Kumar points out, wide enough for a stretcher.
They would come in through this door. Both the procedure rooms would be directly accessible by anybody.
The doctor says that in his year at the clinic, he's had no emergencies requiring outside medical help.
It's a simple procedure, about 5 to 8 minutes, depending on how far along they are.
Dr. Kumar notes that there's no general anesthesia, as there is for colonoscopies, liposuction, and other procedures that are not so strictly regulated in Texas.
Actually, it's much safer than colonoscopy.
Dr. Hal Lawrence is CEO of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, ACOG.
The incidence of a serious complication requiring hospitalization for abortion is incredibly low.
Indeed, one study published in the American Journal of Public Health found that major complications complications from first trimester surgical abortions occur 1/20 of the time. The state's Keller replies that when there are serious complications, however, it's important to have a physician with hospital admitting privileges nearby the clinic.
Everyone admits there can be significant health consequences from those complications.
But the brief filed by major medical associations contends that in today's medical world, doctors are increasingly giving up hospital privileges to doctors hired by the hospital. And says ACOG's Dr. Lawrence, if an abortion patient does go to the hospital with some sort of complication,
There are obviously emergency room physicians there and OBGYNs at those hospitals that can help.
lawyer Stephanie Totti will tell the Supreme Court today that if the admitting privileges and ambulatory surgical center requirements truly offered a health benefit, they would apply across the board to all similar and indeed more dangerous outpatient procedures.
But the fact that Texas has singled out abortion by itself for the imposition of these requirements shows that their true purpose isn't to improve patient health and safety, it's just to burden abortion.
The Supreme Court has allowed states to regulate abortion differently from other procedures, but it said that states may not impose an undue burden on a woman's right to terminate a pregnancy. Texas argues there is no undue burden here. Scott Keller maintains that even if many more clinics are forced to close,
Every metropolitan area in Texas that has a clinic today will still have one.
clinic defenders counter that vast expanses of this second largest state in the country would be uncovered, making for long waits at the existing clinics. That's borne out by the women we met at the Fort Worth clinic, who asked not to be identified for fear of harassment. This woman raced to the clinic when a cancellation allowed her to avoid a 1-month wait.
It'd be a very devastating thing for women not to be able to make their own choice and have to wait a month and be even further along to not be able to do this.
Another woman drove 200 miles round trip with her husband to get here because the abortion clinics that were near her town had closed, and the birth of her first child, she says, nearly killed her.
I had a severe complication in the birth process, and the doctor advised me not to have any more, so here we are.
Texas State House member Isaac replies that women who live 200 or 300 miles from the nearest clinic should acknowledge that reality.
Well, hopefully they'll be more preventative.
You mean not get pregnant?
And not get pregnant, yes. And realize that, hey, that might still be an option legally, but now I live 300 miles away from the nearest place. I should probably be more careful.
Despite the death of Justice Antonin Scalia last month, Justice Anthony Kennedy remains the likely swing vote in this case. If he votes to strike down the Texas law, there would be at least a 5-3 majority for that outcome. But if he votes to uphold the law, the court would likely be tied, and the Texas abortion law would remain in place, at least for now. Nina Totenberg, NPR News, Washington.
WNYC is supported by CA Technologies, who believes that in the application economy, every business is in the software business. CA makes software to empower enterprises and help them thrive. More information is at ca.com. Canon USA, offering the Canon Digital Learning Center, featuring how-to content like articles, blogs, and videos for photographers of all experience levels. More at learn.usa.canon.com.
And support for WNYC comes from you when you become a listener member here at WNYC. Tomorrow is the last day of the WNYC Winter Fundraiser. Thank you so much if you have done your part, whether you did it before the drive started, during the drive. Tomorrow's the last day, so please don't put it off any longer. It really takes just 2 minutes of your time to become a member, whatever level is comfortable for you. And right now, at this very moment that you're listening to WNYC, is such a great time to spend 2 minutes to invest in a whole year's worth of WNYC. That's because your contribution will be worth 50% more right now. A $60 pledge turns into $90 to WNYC. A $100 pledge turns into $150. Maybe you wait for these matching periods. Well, now is the time to call 1-888-376-9692. You can also take advantage of the match at WNYC.org. Good morning, I'm Satirius Johnson. With me this morning, the host of Death, Sex, and Money, Anna Sale. And Anna, you've got the details on this match.
Yes, this match is thanks to New York Public Radio trustee Martha Fleischman. She is adding that extra $1 for every $2 that you donate to WNYC right now. So whatever you're able to give, gets 50% bigger automatically right now during this matching period. It is a good reason to go to WNYC.org or to give us a call and make your contribution. I'm sure you've been intending to do it for a few days now. Maybe it's been a while since you've given to WNYC. Maybe you've listened a long time but have never actually contributed. Do it right now during this matching period. Your dollars will go further and you will be investing in the public radio that is a part of your morning routine. You will be supporting Morning Edition, All Things Considered, The Brian Lehrer Show, Leonard Lopate, Radio Lab, Studio 360, On the Media, everything that happens here at WNYC. Maybe you were looking at election returns at WNYC.org last night, listening to the call-in with Brian Lehrer as he called and listened to New Yorkers calling in who were born from some of the Super Tuesday states. All of that is thanks to listener dollars. We rely on listeners stepping up and becoming supporters. Join in 888-376-9692 or go to WNYC.org.
WNYC Radio depends on your financial support. If you give a little more, $1,200 or more, we'd like to say thanks by asking you into our Producer's Circle. Members will be invited to attend Producer's Circle events and studio tours. And, the most important part, you'll be helping to support the shows, news, and information you rely on every day. To learn more, call 1-888-376-9692 or pledge online at WNYC.org.
If you've been meaning to make a Producer Circle contribution right now, $100 a month, that $1,200 pledge, if you make it right now, turns into $1,800 because it too will be matched during this matching period. Do your part and a whole lot more for WNYC at whatever level is comfortable for you. Have your dollars matched at 1-888-376-9692 or at WNYC.org. Think about how much you rely on WNYC, and remember that listener contributions are the single most important, reliable source of funding for everything you hear on WNYC. We really couldn't do it without you, so do your part right now. Have your dollars matched at 1-888-376-9692 or WNYC.org. Tomorrow is the last day of the drive, so please don't put it off any longer, and thank you so much.
It takes full participation to make a community radio station possible. I'm Brian Lehrer. If you listen to WNYC on a regular basis, then please do your part, whatever you decide that is. Just as every vote counts, we hope, in an election, every pledge counts to fund not-for-profit media. Keep WNYC viable and strong. We need full participation from our listening community. We hope that includes you at 1-888-376-WNYC or at WNYC.org. And thanks.
Support for NPR comes from member stations and from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, committed to focusing on the areas of greatest need to help ensure more children and young people survive and thrive. More information is available at gatesfoundation.org. And Red Hat, providing enterprise open-source software solutions to companies in the Fortune 500, including airlines, commercial banking, telcos, and healthcare. Learn more at redhat.com. Red Hat, tried, tested, trusted.
You're listening to Morning Edition on WNYC. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump both won 7 out of 11 states in yesterday's primaries, and that means we could have 2 New Yorkers facing off in the general election. WNYC's Andrea Bernstein and Janet Babin watched election returns with some party faithful on both sides, and they join us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Andrea, New York is always sidelined in national elections because our primary comes so late in the process, and yet now we're sending possibly 2 candidates from the metropolitan area to vie for the presidency. How did this happen?
How indeed. So New York is so blue, it's indigo. So that means that general elections don't really happen here. In a normal year, candidates won't spend any time here, and the only way that New York gets to participate is mostly to give money. Even Ted Cruz, who has been lambasting New York values, comes here to fundraise. So we're a big money pot in the election. And then also the ideas, the intellectuals, the academics, universities, political movements based here that contribute to the national dialogue. So now we're adding a third way of contributing to national campaigns. Both Clinton and New York have been able to succeed on New York's big stage, and they're both celebrities, which paradoxically makes Americans from all over feel connected to them. But what is especially interesting is that the candidates are not running away from being New Yorkers, they're owning it. In fact, Clinton is coming here this afternoon to the Javits Center for a big rally the day after Super Tuesday, and she is holding it. It's kind of a Trumpian move. She's holding it in New York, taking it right to Trump. She'll be just a mile from his house this afternoon.
So, Janet, what are you finding among Republicans? Do they feel connected to Donald Trump as New Yorkers specifically?
You know, Sidurius, the voters tell me they do like Trump because he sounds like he's from New York and they understand his brashness in a way. But for the most part, people were either repulsed or enamored of Trump because of more pressing other reasons. Though they did feel there was this sense like, I'm a New Yorker, he's from New York, he is not getting over on me.
Okay. Last night you went to an Upper East Side Republican club in search of the GOP establishment. Was there a lot of hand wringing as Trump racked up, all the votes and all those wins?
Not overt hand wringing. Overall, I'd say there was a mix in the room between Rubio supporters and Trump supporters. And, I thought that based on my reporting earlier in the week that there'd be more of a split and that you'd see more anti-Trump Republicans in the room, but no.
Yesterday, former New Jersey Governor Christine Todd Whitman, a Republican, told WNYC she would consider voting for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump, and she expressed disgust over his failure to immediately disavow white supremacist and KKK leader David Duke. What did the Trump supporters have to say about Duke's endorsement of Trump?
Well, some voters told me that they're going to consider voting for Clinton as well, and they were at the Republican club that I was at last night. As for the Duke comments, voters I spoke with say his answer was misinterpreted. They blamed the media for asking the question and Trump's opponents for jumping onto his comments and saying that was a weakness. So this sort of kept these comments alive and intensified the controversy.